There is something deeply unsettling that almost no one tells you about narcissists. Everyone assumes they destroy the people around them because they are powerful, dominant, intelligent, or somehow superior. That belief is not just wrong, it is the exact illusion the narcissist wants you to believe. Because the truth is far more disturbing and far more liberating once you finally understand it. Narcissists do not destroy everything around them because they are strong. They destroy everything around them because something inside them is already broken beyond their ability to face it. And every relationship, every friendship, every family bond, every opportunity, every ounce of peace they touch becomes collateral damage in a war they are silently waging against themselves. If you have ever walked away from a narcissist wondering how someone could burn down something so beautiful, so promising, so full of love, this is the answer you have been searching for your entire life. Before we go deeper, if you are someone who has felt the confusion, the exhaustion, the emotional fog that comes from being close to a narcissist, this channel was built for you. Here we break down narcissistic behavior with clarity. We help you heal from emotional abuse. We guide you back to your confidence, and we teach you how to protect yourself from toxic people for the rest of your life. Subscribe now because what you are about to understand will change the way you see every painful relationship you have ever had. The first thing you must understand is that narcissism is not arrogance. It is not confidence. It is not high self-esteem. Clinically, pathological narcissism is the opposite. It is a fragile, unstable, deeply insecure internal structure held together by image, control, and the constant intake of validation. Underneath the grandiosity is a self that feels empty, defective, and unworthy of love. And because that internal wound is unbearable, the narcissist spends every waking moment running from it. They cannot sit with themselves. They cannot tolerate honest reflection. They cannot survive emotional intimacy without feeling exposed. So they build an entire personality designed to avoid the truth of who they are. And anything that threatens that constructed image, even love, even kindness, even genuine connection, becomes a threat that must be neutralized. This is why narcissists destroy the very things they claim to value. Because the closer something gets to their authentic self, the more dangerous it feels. Real intimacy requires vulnerability. Vulnerability requires honesty, and honesty is the one thing the narcissist cannot afford. So when a partner gets too close, when a friend sees too much, when a family member challenges the illusion, the narcissist does not lean in. They sabotage, they withdraw, they provoke, they create conflict out of nothing. They start arguments designed to push the other person away, because emotional distance feels safer than emotional truth. And here is where the psychology becomes even more revealing. Narcissists are driven by an internal force most people never recognize, which is envy. Not admiration, not ambition, envy. They cannot tolerate the goodness, the stability, the peace, or the success of others, even the people they love. When someone close to them thrives, the narcissist does not feel proud. They feel diminished. Because in their distorted internal world, another person's light makes their own emptiness more visible. So they undermine, they criticize, they minimize accomplishments, they make jokes that cut a little too deep. They withdraw affection at the exact moment you need it most. They cannot celebrate you because your joy reminds them of everything they cannot feel inside themselves. This is why families with a narcissistic member often feel like emotional war zones. The narcissist cannot allow harmony because harmony does not revolve around them. Healthy families create connection through mutual respect and shared emotional safety. But the narcissist needs hierarchy. They need to be the center. They need someone to admire them, someone to blame, someone to control, and someone to scapegoat. So they engineer chaos. They triangulate relationships. They pit siblings against each other. They rewrite history. They create alliances and then break them. They turn parents against children and children against parents. And when the family finally fractures, they stand in the middle of the wreckage and call themselves the victim. The same pattern plays out in friendships. Narcissists do not form friendships the way emotionally healthy people do. They form transactions. Every relationship is evaluated by what it provides, whether that is admiration, status, access, attention, or emotional supply. The moment a friend stops feeding the narcissist's image, the friendship begins to decay. You may notice that narcissists rarely keep long-term friendships. The relationships either end in dramatic betrayal or quietly disappear without explanation. Because once you stop being useful to their self-image, you stop existing in their internal world. And in the workplace, the destruction is even more strategic. Narcissists often appear charismatic, ambitious, and high-performing at first, but over time, the cracks emerge. They take credit for the work of others. They sabotage colleagues who outshine them. They cannot tolerate feedback because feedback feels like an attack on their identity. They form cliques. They spread gossip. They manipulate managers. They turn departments into political battlegrounds. And when their behavior finally catches up to them, they do not reflect. They blame. They paint themselves as misunderstood geniuses surrounded by jealous incompetence. And then they move on to the next environment, leaving behind a trail of damaged careers, broken teams, and confused people who cannot understand what just happened. You may be sitting there right now realizing that every pattern you are hearing is something you have lived through. And I want you to pause for a moment and absorb this truth, because it is one of the most healing realizations you will ever encounter. The destruction you experienced was never about you. It was never about your worth. It was never about something you failed to do or be. The narcissist would have destroyed anyone who got close enough. You were not the problem. You were the mirror. And mirrors are the one thing a narcissist cannot survive. If this is resonating with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. This is the kind of understanding that rebuilds people from the inside out. And the more you stay with this content, the more clearly you will begin to see patterns that once felt invisible. You are not alone in this. There is a whole community here learning to heal, and you belong in it. Now let us go deeper into the psychological mechanisms that fuel the destruction. One of the most powerful forces inside the narcissist is the inability to regulate emotion. Most adults, even imperfect ones, develop the ability to feel an emotion, process it internally, and respond with some level of awareness. The narcissist cannot do this. Their emotional system is underdeveloped, reactive, and externalized. When they feel shame, they cannot hold it, so they project it onto you. When they feel fear, they convert it into anger. When they feel inadequate, they attack the person who triggered the feeling. This is why arguments with narcissists feel insane. You are not actually arguing about the topic in front of you. You are absorbing emotions they cannot tolerate within themselves. They are not communicating, they are discharging. This is also why accountability feels like death to a narcissist. For a healthy person, admitting fault is uncomfortable but survivable. For the narcissist, admitting fault threatens the entire fragile structure of their identity. If they are wrong about one thing, they might be wrong about everything. If they hurt you, they might be the kind of person who hurts people. And that truth is so unbearable that they will do anything to avoid it. They will lie. They will rewrite events. They will accuse you of the very things they did. They will twist your words, distort your memory, and rearrange reality until you begin to doubt your own mind. This is not a communication style. This is a survival mechanism for a self that cannot face itself. And this is where projection becomes one of the most psychologically violent tools in their arsenal. Projection is the unconscious act of taking what you cannot accept in yourself and placing it onto someone else. The narcissist who calls you selfish is usually describing their own behavior. The one who accuses you of lying is usually the one lying. The one who insists you do not love them enough is usually incapable of love themselves. Every accusation is a confession. Once you understand projection, the fog begins to lift. You start to hear their words not as descriptions of you, but as autobiographies they do not realize they are reading aloud. But perhaps the most painful pattern of all is the narcissist's tendency to destroy the things they claim to want most. They say they want love, but they sabotage it. They say they want family, but they fracture it. They say they want success, but they undermine it at the moment it arrives. They say they want peace, but they create chaos every time peace appears. Why? Because their internal world cannot match their external desires. Love requires vulnerability they cannot tolerate. Family requires accountability they cannot accept. Success requires consistency they cannot maintain. Peace requires self-confrontation they cannot survive. So they destroy whatever they build, not because they want to, but because the version of themselves they would have to become to keep it is the one version they are running from. And this is the moment so many survivors finally understand something they could never explain before. The narcissist did not leave because you were not enough. The narcissist did not cheat because you were not attractive enough. The narcissist did not rage because you provoked them. The narcissist did not destroy your bond because the bond was weak. They destroyed it because the bond was real. And real is the one thing they cannot live inside. If you have made it this far into the video, you already know how important this message is. Please take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. There are millions of people out there still trapped in confusion, still blaming themselves, still trying to understand what happened to them. Your single share could be the moment someone finally sees the truth. This is how we break cycles. This is how we protect future generations from emotional abuse. This is how we turn pain into purpose. Now consider what happens when the narcissist begins to lose control, because this is where the destruction reaches its peak. When a narcissist senses that their power over you is weakening, when you start setting boundaries, when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop chasing their approval, something inside them panics. Their entire sense of self depends on their ability to influence your emotional state. The moment they cannot move you, they feel like they are disappearing. So they escalate. They smear your name. They contact people you love. They flip the narrative. They play the victim with such conviction that even people who once trusted you begin to doubt. This is not random behavior. This is what is known as a narcissistic injury, and the wound it creates inside them produces a rage that has very little to do with you and everything to do with the collapse of their illusion. And yet, even in their cruelty, there is something deeply tragic about the narcissist. Because they will never know real love. They will never feel the safety of being truly seen. They will never experience the quiet joy of being accepted for who they actually are, because they spend every moment hiding from that self. They will move from relationship to relationship, from job to job, from city to city, always blaming the outside world, always certain that the next person will finally understand them, always destroying what could have saved them. This is not a life of power. This is a life sentence. And while the people they hurt grow, heal, and reclaim themselves, the narcissist remains frozen in the same patterns, repeating the same destruction, never learning, never softening, never free. This is why your healing matters so much. Because the moment you stop measuring yourself by the chaos they created, you begin to see your true reflection again. You begin to remember who you were before the gaslighting, before the manipulation, before the slow erosion of your confidence. You begin to feel your own thoughts again without the static of their voice in your head. You begin to trust your perceptions. You begin to recognize your worth not because someone validated it, but because you finally see it clearly. And once you see it, no one will ever be able to take it from you again. The destruction the narcissist left behind was never a verdict on your value. It was a map of their internal world. The wreckage was theirs. The chaos was theirs. The dysfunction was theirs. You were simply standing in the path of a storm that had been forming inside them long before you ever met. And now that you understand it, you can finally step out of that storm and into the life that was always meant for you. One built on boundaries, on self-respect, on emotional safety, on relationships that nourish instead of drain. If this message reached something deep inside you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next video. Join this community of people who are healing, learning, and reclaiming their lives. You do not have to walk this path alone. There is clarity here. There is validation here. There is a way forward, and it begins the moment you decide that your peace is no longer negotiable. You were never the destruction. You were the light they could not contain. And the moment you stop apologizing for that light is the moment your entire life begins to change.